the next speaker for today. I don't know if I've met a more impressive 19-year-old kid in my life. In the few weeks that I've gotten to know Alex, I've been absolutely blown away with his passion to help people. At the age of 16, he essentially took the world of basketball recruiting by storm, becoming one of the first people to make use of social media to report the happenings of the hottest players in high school basketball. Over the course of the last couple of years, he's become one of the most influential names in basketball recruiting, earning a mention to the Forbes 30 Under 30 sports list not once but twice. I'm pretty sure he took my spot this year, but I'm going to forgive him because he's going to talk to us today. Alex is still a student at Syracuse, but once summer comes around, he's a man that has inside information that every coach in the country wants, and he gives all that intel through his website, aptly named the Recruit Scoop. Most importantly, however, Alex runs the Kline Classic, an annual basketball event in New Jersey to raise money for cancer research, and an event in memory of his late mother, and an event that I'm proud to say Krossover will be supporting from this year onwards. Given our plans to get into the recruiting world this summer, I felt that Alex would be a great speaker to have come in and drop some knowledge on us. So everyone put it together for Alex Kline.
How's everyone doing today?
Good.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear
If
you.
you want to use it, you can. Otherwise, just say it really.
All right, perfect.
Up to you.
So, first off, this is my first time speaking in public. You'd think by now I would have gotten some experience. So a lot went into this speech, a lot went into this thought. I guess my first thought would be what really changed my perspective on all of this. You know, I was, at the time, a 16-year-old, just looking for information, looking for interviews, constantly pondering how could I connect with every top athlete. And, you know, I leveled the playing field, I narrowed who I wanted to speak with, you know, and that would be the high school basketball players, the top high school basketball players. And I interviewed Kyrie Irving, I interviewed Tristan Thompson, I interviewed tons and tons of kids, and I was just a little kid, you know, acne, weird hair, which is still kind of weird, backpack, you know, just running around with a pencil and pad, basically a pad like this.
The backpacks are cool now.
They are. So is facial hair, which I'll get to. But, you know, I always wanted to interview Michael Gilchrist, being a New Jersey guy, and, you know, being someone who really looked up to him. He's such a great player now. He's playing with the Charlotte Bobcats. He was the #2 pick a couple years ago in the draft. And for some reason, you know, I know with a lot of hot athletes, they don't like to do interviews. And I couldn't figure out whether, you know, maybe he didn't like me, whether, you know, his mother was just being precautious. I knew he wasn't into them. And I really couldn't figure it out, so I tried his freshman year, tried his sophomore year, junior year, and it never seemed to work out, whether it would just be him ignoring me, whether it would be just being denied, and I couldn't figure that out. By senior year, though, he became more comfortable speaking, and you know, I spoke with his mother about it, and we decided to do an interview. We did the interview on camera, and as soon as I filmed him and started filming it, he dropped his Gatorade bottle. He started flustering a little bit. He started stuttering a bit. I was a little worried. He couldn't really get out the words that he wanted to, and quite frankly, the finished product wasn't so great. I decided to put it up online, and that was one of the bigger regrets in my life. You know, Michael Gilchrist is a star player, an amazing athlete, a great person too. And I got a call from his mother saying, "You made him look horrible." And I thought to myself, well, why not embrace his challenges? Why not embrace how he is? And then I realized I was being selfish, and that I couldn't do this just to get views. I couldn't do this just to build my brand up. I had to work for the kids. I later found out that Michael has a speech impediment. He has a number of things that, you know, just he can't really speak in public or on cue. And I just realized after that I need to do this for the kids. Hi, my name's Alex Kline. I'm a 19-year-old student at Syracuse University. I'll be 20 in the summer. And I'm a national recruiting analyst with Rivals.com. I created the Recruit Scoop when I was a sophomore in high school. And essentially, what I used to do before I was a recruiting analyst was just find out information on kids, who's recruiting them, where are they looking, where are they leaning towards, all of that stuff. That's great. A lot of people do that. It's essentially being a reporter. I think that's cool, but at a point, what are you doing for the world? How are you helping? How are you influencing? So one day I decided to get a Twitter, like probably everyone else. Raise your hand if you're on Twitter here. Luckily, you know, I was able to find enough information, enough unique information about recruiting that I was able to build up a following. And currently I hold, you know, 33,000 Twitter followers, which to some may be a great deal. It helps me personally because I'm able to influence others. And I do that because college coaches then started tagging along. They started asking, you know, tell me about this player, tell me about that player. And all I could really do was tell them who was recruiting them. What I then started doing is realizing there was a greater purpose to this, and that was scouting. Scouting, you know, anyone can be a scout. I think it's pretty easy, or at least for me it is. I enjoy it greatly because you get to watch basketball, you get paid in the process, not that that matters. But you really get to influence someone's life if you have credibility. And what I currently do is I'll watch, you know, hundreds and thousands of players nationally, and then from there I'll evaluate their talent based on a number of, you know, numerous criteria. And then I'll write that up online, send that to college coaches, and then make the connection, connecting players with college coaches, giving them the opportunity not only to get noticed, but following up and working hard for them to give them the opportunity at a scholarship. I currently pay $60,000 a year to attend Syracuse University. I would kill for a scholarship. I would kill for financial aid. You know, fortunately, I have a job. Fortunately, I'm in a good situation where I can pay for my education, but not everyone can. And, you know, it's a great thing to be able to help out a lot of these kids. You know, they come from some horrible neighborhoods. Some of them have tough living styles. Some of them, they just have dreams of playing, you know, in the Ivy League and getting that education and using basketball to advance further in life. But it's pretty amazing to be able to help some of these kids and to see some of them gain scholarships through what I've been able to do, as well as, you know, then commit to that school and have a successful life. I've been doing this now 5 years, and I've seen hundreds of kids benefit and gain scholarships because of the Recruit Scoop. And it's really amazing to me how, you know, digital media and social media can have that influence. So, how do I separate myself? I think it's really, you know, relating to the kids. Because without the kids, you don't have anything. The reason I still do this is because of the recruits, because of the players. They're all amazing people. They're young. They bring out the best in me. They're just fun people to be around. And how I separated myself was because being a young person, I could relate to them. You know, it's not just going up to them saying, hey, you know, what schools are looking at you. I had more of a strategic approach, but more of a friendly approach too. You know, I wasn't in it for any reason. It was more so now, following, you know, that Michael Gilchrist interview, it was really getting to know them, asking them how they're doing, checking in on them. A lot of people always want these basketball players for one reason or another. I just wanted to be their friend and help them out on all levels. You know, did you ask that girl to prom? What did you have for lunch? Little things like that. It goes a long way. Not just in the basketball players' world, but in someone's day. That can really make someone's day. But that's how I separated myself. I was able then, because of the players, to connect with coaches, to connect with sources. They saw that I really did care about the players. And I was able to just get in with all these college coaches around the nation, all these high school coaches around the nation, and just build things up from there. And it's been a really cool experience doing that. Another topic I'd like to speak on is the recruiting world, the youth basketball world. There are a lot of positives. As I tell a lot of people, there are a lot of negatives that go to it, but for every bad person, you meet 100 great people. You know, I know everyone hears about the negative things, and I listed a few on my sheet. The shoe companies, runners, agents, grades, cheating, women, entitlement. And I think the biggest thing I've been able to do, because we can't always control who's talking to who when it comes to agents and shoe companies and all that stuff. I admit I love Nike. A lot of people do. But the biggest thing I can do is be honest with them as a player. There are a lot of people who have big aspirations, and unfortunately sometimes their parents like to live through them. Whether that be, I didn't get a chance to play college basketball, so I want to go through my son to do that, or my daughter to do that. And it doesn't always work that way because, you can only be as good as possible on the basketball court. And sometimes you just need some honesty. Perfect example of that would be this morning, because I can relate to all things. This morning, I had a mustache prior to this. So what happened was, I was shaving, and I'm not really a facial hair type guy until recently. It's back in, I guess. And I was shaving, and one part of my mustache wasn't equal with the other part. And I'm thinking to myself on the train, what do I do? Do I go here and look like a fool? Do I make a joke out of it? So I end up shaving on the subway, and it wasn't the best idea, but I'd look a hell of a lot better right now. Anyway, that story essentially means that honesty is key. If I was to ask Vazu what he thought of my mustache at the time, he could give me two answers. He could lie to my face and make me feel great and say, it looks really good. Or he could be like, Alex, that thing looks awful. It's the same way with high school players. Sometimes they want to hear what they want to hear. Sometimes parents want to hear what they want to hear. But if you have enough influence and you have the right mindset, you can tell them how you truly feel. Look, your son isn't a Division I player. He's a Division II player. Look, he can't play at Duke. He should go to George Mason. Something like that. The biggest thing I can do for these kids is influence them to go to the right fit where they can, do well, they can play, they can get a degree in what they want, they can be happy there, they can, go into the right coaching staff. It's been amazing to me because a lot of these kids that I worked with when they were in high school, they come to me now when they're looking to transfer colleges. I just had a kid who's at James Madison. He's their leading scorer. He's getting 40 minutes a game there. He's flourishing. They made the tournament last year. But he told me, there are just some things there that he doesn't like. It just doesn't bring out the best in him. And sometimes you have to be honest with them. Because his whole thing is, I want to make the NBA. You're playing 40 minutes a game in the CAA. What more can you do to really get to the NBA? He wants, better competition, but it's my role as someone he trusts to give him the right information, to steer him in the right direction, because my choice of wording, everything I say, that could impact what he does. And it determines whether he's just a 4-year player, plays pro overseas, plays in the NBA, sells drugs. I don't know. But every decision makes a big difference. So then getting into building up a brand. Recruiting is now taken off. You see it on ESPNU all the time with games. You see, all the entitlement that builds up from it. And it's due, with all of the television games and the shoe companies and everything. I'm not a big fan of entitlement. I see that a lot. And it is what it is. But I'll get to that a little later. Anyway, building up a brand. Sometimes you have to build up a brand inadvertently. You have to help other people by doing what you love to do. I love what I do currently with helping these kids out and putting out this information. It's really amazing to me how much people care about recruiting information and all this stuff. But the biggest thing is, your work reflects everything. A lot of people always ask me, hey, can I get an internship with you? Hey, can I start writing for you? And I tell them no. And the reason behind that is because this is my brand, I want my work to reflect that. And if it was to be in a negative form where, that person, that intern, messes something up or doesn't live up to the high quality expectations that I have for this brand, then that ruins the brand. I'm sure it's the same way with Krossover. I'm sure it's the same way with everything. You know, you have a brand, you have to live up to that brand and have high expectations. And being the leader and the controller of that, you know, you have to do that. Back to entitlement, because I think that's the #1 issue in youth basketball right now, and basketball in general. Because obviously, again, going back to the shoe company, going back to everything, it just scares me a little bit. And I'm not sure if there is a way that we can change that. You know, I think a place like Krossover, you know, can help because it establishes who actually deserves a little entitlement and who doesn't. But it is pretty scary to me to see that. I think the biggest thing that we can do in the industry, when talking with a player, when talking with a coach, is like I said before, being honest with them, not always patting them on the back, telling them, look, you did a good job, but here's what you can do. And I think through Krossover, you have that analysis part that really does bring a realistic approach to everything. It brings an honest approach to everything, and it really goes a long way. Another big part of building a brand, though, goes into social media. Social media, you have to have something about you that's different. Everyone wonders, you know, how can I have a few thousand followers? How come I only have, you know, 20 followers and following 7,000 people? Biggest thing is defining your brand, building it up, making yourself different. I pride myself on being different than other people. I don't smoke, I don't drink, I usually don't go to college parties. I'm always working, trying to find what's next, what to do next. How can I separate myself from the field? And it's tough. It's tough because a lot of the times the easiest thing to do is conform. You know, to take the job with the most money, to date the girl who has no personality and, you know, is really attractive. Maybe one day. but you know what I'm saying, though. Sometimes you have to be different and switch up norms and lead your own path and go down that road. The last thing I want to talk about is my event, the Mary Kline Classic. I think in basketball there are a lot of, you know, negative parts to it with shoe companies again, with just with everything. It can be a really horrible business, but then there are the good parts. And I think the Mary Kline Classic is one of the better parts. You know, when I was 5 years old, my mother was diagnosed with a brain tumor, and she was given 18 months to live. Luckily, you know, she was treated properly, and she made it to my kindergarten graduation. She survived 5 years, which was pretty amazing, even though she really deteriorated. And she passed away when I was 10 years old. Ever since then, I've really dedicated my life to not only helping to find a cure for cancer, because I truly believe that there will be a cure one day, but also dedicating myself to making sure that children with, you know, who've lost a parent or who've lost someone important in their life are able to prosper instead of falling down. I was lucky enough where I was in a good situation despite that, and I could prosper. I had great opportunities in front of me. Unfortunately, not everyone's like that. Not everyone has, you know, a great family. Not everyone has, you know, financial stability. And, you know, out of this, I was able to make a lot of great lists. I was able to be in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, ABC News, Today Show, etc., etc. That part doesn't matter to me. The part that matters to me is what I've been able to do with the Mary Kline Classic. Essentially, it is NBA All-Star Weekend for high school players wrapped up into one day. There are about 364, 365 days in a year. I spent all those days on about 6-7 hours of what the Mary Kline Classic is. And essentially that is promoting and raising money for cancer research, as well as teaching a lot of these great high school basketball players about philanthropy and the importance of philanthropy and how, you know, they have a lot of clout and they can really do a lot with it. And rather than just, you know, wasting all that talent and all that importance, why not, you know, give back to a great cause? So these are players that are about to head to Syracuse and Maryland and Kansas and Kentucky. And they really lay it all on the line for such an amazing cause. you know, like a lot of these kids, you know, the week after the event, which is in June, they're going to head to college. They could risk injury. They could risk potentially losing millions of dollars that are guaranteed as NBA lottery picks. And you know, it's amazing to see them put their ego behind them and just play for an amazing cause. We've raised over $55,000 for cancer research in 3 years. This is our 4th year. We've teamed up with Krossover now. We're really excited about that. Nike's on board, Gatorade, Skull Candy, even my favorite, Chipotle. But it's really amazing to see this take off, and it's all for an amazing cause. And I think, you know, in the world of basketball where there is a lot of bad, there's a lot of good. Lastly, I want to talk about being appreciative. You know, there are always times in this business where I feel that my time's about to come to an end, where I want to try something different, where I want to move on, and that the recruiting world is boring and silly and it needs to, you know, just stop. But it finally hit me that basketball has done so much for me. It does so much for a lot of these kids and everyone here. It does so much, and I really need to be appreciative, and we all need to be appreciative of what we have currently. And that's okay to dream and have big dreams, but you know, we have to live in the moment and we have to reflect on our past and how we've gotten to where we are right now, because we're all in amazing positions, myself included, and you know, just be appreciative of what we have. Thank you.
You said that you're always trying to conform, and you know, obviously, you know, the internet is changing, the way we view things, the way we learn about things is changing. How has your website changed over the course of the past 3 years that you've been doing this, and how do you plan on, you know, doing something that none of the other recruiting sites are doing in the future?
I think the biggest thing is, you know, and making us different was the social media presence at first. You know, obviously everyone likes to report through newspaper, magazine, you know, online obviously has taken off and now it's really all online. But the biggest thing was social media and making sure we had a presence on there, because now everyone's on there. The funny thing was when Rivals approached me about, you know, it was coming up on 2 years now, they approached me. I had my own site at the time, the recruitscoop.com, and the crazy thing was I was writing maybe 2, 3, 4 articles a month, which is very little. It was all constantly tweeting and just putting out the right information and just being in the right place at the right time. From there then, you know, I had to write, now I'm writing like 20, 25 articles a month with Rivals, so you really have to step things up. As far as adjusting now, I think we're in a good position. You know, the next thing would be just implementing all forms of digital media with video, you know, chat rooms, connect, all these different types of media. But that's obviously the next part. I'm trying to figure out the next part myself, because we've gone so far, but how can you make yourself different when now everyone's trying to, everyone sees what you did and how you competed and how you kind of got to the top, so now everyone's doing that. So I need to figure out the next step in establishing ourselves and making us different from everyone else.
2 questions. The first one is so with your balancing school and work, like what do you do? What's your process to watch a lot of these games and recruits right now? What do you currently do?
The biggest thing I can do, other than being at the games over winter break and over summer break and all that, you know, watch online. And I think there's a big misunderstanding, which Krossover helps with as far as clarifying. It's highlight tapes versus, you know, real game footage. Highlight tapes, shoot, I suck at basketball, to be honest. I really, really suck. And I could have a good highlight tape. With Krossover, with game film in general, you can see what the kid's doing the entire length of the game. And that's the most important thing. So seeing game tape, evaluating what the player does without the ball, what they do with the ball, you know, other than just, you know, here's this kid dunking 10 times, here's him scoring, you know, 100 points. Here's what he does, here's how he struggles, and here's how he works with it.
And then the second part, you talked a lot about just your influence and helping kids do what's right. How do you, I guess, how do you balance that with like your own biases? And I imagine like you know a lot of different coaches, but how do you like just kind of navigate that when like you know, you're trying to, you have a relationship on both sides with players and coaches? So.
I think you need to find the right fit for both. You know, I've been able to get to know a lot of college coaches very in depth, and some of them you can really tell they're sincere and they mean what they're saying when they, you know, when they truly say, "Well, look out for this kid. Here's what we can do for him," promises and all that stuff. Because a lot of people can break their promises. A verbal commitment is verbal. It means nothing until you sign a piece of paper. For the kid, you need to figure out what works for him. Is he coachable? Does he fit the system? But there are a lot of variables, and I think bias does come into it. A lot of people always ask me, "Hey, you know, I see you talk to a lot of kids at, you know, who are going to Syracuse next year for basketball. You go to Syracuse, how much are you paying them?" And I find it funny because, I mean, I wish I had money to pay people. I have no money. But, you know, it's just funny because I think with basketball, there are times when you really do need to put your bias aside. There are obviously times when it can work in your favor in helping others. But most times you just need to throw it out the window and just use your knowledge in order to connect the right people with the right people.
So you're 19 years old. You said a key to your success was the ability to connect with all these young kids,
Correct.
fairly similar in age. But how have you been able to connect with all these coaches who are 50 years older than you, been in the game for 30 years, and gain their trust?
A lot of it's been them trying to connect with me, because the biggest thing for them is how can we use this guy to get to the kids? He knows the kids well, he talks with them all the time, they confide in him about little things like that, with recruiting and what they're doing in their plan. So how can we get in with him? So most times, and I really don't like reaching out to college coaches, most times they reach out to me. That's how it all started. I get emails and calls, and I'm like, wow, you know, Kansas is calling me. This is pretty cool. So that was always the biggest thing, just not turning anyone off. As far as reaching out to them, you know, you can tell that a lot of the older guys are kind of against social media. They're not really for conforming. So, you know, basketball is becoming a younger and younger business. All these new assistant coaches are coming in and really taking all the recruits, and it's pretty amazing to see because, you know, they're on LinkedIn, they're on Instagram, they're on Facebook and Twitter, and just finding every single way to capitalize on these opportunities of talking to the kids and connecting with them. But even the older guys, you know, they're doing a good job. They're not as good at it, but they're trying hard.
So, you know, now that you're a little bit more established, you kind of have a network, I'm sure it's easier to kind of connect with the kids, but early on, before you kind of had that established network, what were some of the things you were doing to kind of, like, at least get your name out to these kids, get in their ear a little bit?
Totally.
You know, talk to them.
The biggest thing, I mean, I don't know if it really worked. I'd go on Facebook and ESPN for the rankings, and you'd see the top 100 kids. And I'd go on Facebook and I'd simply friend request all of them. Some of you may think that's stalking. I think of it as networking. And from there, we were, you know, I was just able to contact them freely. And because these guys are still in high school and they see that I'm in high school, some of them are willing to write back, some of them are willing to talk. And I just constantly kept, you know, chatting with them, hitting them up every week, every month, just trying to establish those relationships. It was funny, I was pretty close with Kyrie Irving, and then my dad took away my phone because I wasn't doing that well in school. And we lost communication, and then, you know, somewhere he went to Duke, and he goes to the NBA, and, you know, that's history now. But, yeah, it was pretty amazing. And then I think going to the events, showing your face, and showing your brand in person. Because, you know, emails can only go so far, texting and being behind a computer screen can go so far. But being face-to-face and talking with someone in person, whether it be 2 minutes or an hour, it can really go a long way because that person can then tell, you know, it's like a first impression on a date. You know, you really get to figure someone out in the first minute, you know, what you like about them, what you don't like about them, whether you feel comfortable or not with them. Behind the computer, I mean, you know, you just don't get that same feeling, that same experience.
So I know you more so interact with the players and the kids. How, if at all, how much are you involved in their decision? Do you ever dissuade them from making a decision? Like, how involved in that final say are you?
Yeah, it all depends how close I am with the player, how close I am with the family. I try not to play the role of advisor. I think advisors can be silly sometimes just because they're usually in it for the wrong reasons. My role is clarifying things with them, making sure they realize a lot of the things like, hey, you know, this school is about to lose their shooting guard to the NBA draft. You may want to, you may want to check this out, or, this school's coach is on the verge of getting fired next year, so he'll be here for your first year, but then he may lose his job. So it's more of the variables and obstacles that they have to overcome and that they have to realize when making such a life-changing decision. There are times when I do have to sway them to a certain school just because I realize that it's not going to work out, and a lot of the times it is a player who's trying to go to a much higher level than they can play at, and I realize, this is a kid who's been playing 4 years, starting 4 years, playing the whole time. Once he gets to college and realizes that he's going to be on the bench for the first 2 years, it's not going to work. So why waste the time and the money and everything when you could just go to the right fit and have a good career and just not be in the limelight as much?
Someone else has
You go first,
something.
Shaq. Go ahead.
Have you ever walked the tightrope of breaking any NCAA violations in the league? I'm sure it can get there at some point. With social media has really changed the platform, and
Right.
they've been really crunching down
Right.
on everything. So, just curious.
There's a rule. It's actually funny because I was mentioning this to a friend yesterday. I was every summer, a lot of the college coaches will always tell me, "Hey, I'll see you around. Let's get something to eat." And you'd think something as small as going to get, lunch with a college coach would be fine. Well, the NCAA says it's illegal. So, and it is what it is. So I've always stayed away from that because college coaches always be like, hey, let's get a pretzel. It can be the simplest thing from, a 5-star meal where the guy's feeding me gold and money in my, in my burrito or whatever, to, a soft pretzel in a hockey arena. And I actually had to deal with this yesterday because the first time I went to lunch with a college coach, I finally, decided to do it. I wasn't really happy about it because they always like to milk me for information, but it is what it is.
Essentially, they can ask you to communicate on their behalf.
Right. Oh
which is
yeah, they
illegal
always
as well.
right, and they always
Yeah.
push me. And there are times when I feel like that's worth it, and then there are
Right.
times that it's not worth it. I'll just say, okay, I'll tell them. And the college coach was saying, hey, let me pay for your meal. And I said, no, don't worry about it. It's the little things like that that can be avoided. That it's just not necessary. Because then it's like, oh, can you also do you mind helping me out with this player? I'm like. What's I gonna say? I bought you a burrito, so why not? Burrito
Only
for
if it's Chipotle.
I mean, we were at Chipotle. It's very addicting. It's very addicting.
Do you feel like, just your personal view, do you feel like players should be paid, or are you fine with the system currently?
I like the system currently. I think there are a lot of reasons that we should pay them, but at the same time, it could lead to complete chaos. The biggest reason is players are already getting paid.
Yeah.
Their advisors are getting paid. Well, technically, the players really aren't getting paid. It's their advisors, their parents, all the middlemen.
Really? Not scholarship? Just like extra cash? on the
Extra,
side?
straight up cash. The shoe companies are involved with it. It's really scary, actually, because then you figure if all schools are paying money, if all players are getting paid, as a Division I, as an NCAA requirement, then let's say they're all getting paid $20,000 a year to play. Well, then bigger schools are going to say, oh, well, how do we beat this? Let's give them $40,000. Let's give them $60,000. It's scary because that's a small fraction of what they really do get. Some of these kids, their mentors are paid hundreds and thousands of dollars, as odd as it sounds, because you have the pressure of people on the board at the schools, and they have all this money, and they're afraid, how's our program going to win? Well, let's give them, couple $100,000, let's pimp out their Escalade, let's do this and that, and so that's my reason for not paying the players, because then it would just turn into monopoly.
Just kind of a play off that question, what are your thoughts on the 1-year requirement in college?
I like the 1-year requirement, not for basketball purposes and not for academic purposes, but more so social purposes. One of my close friends, Tyler Roberson, who plays at Syracuse, he's a freshman, went to Roselle Catholic, and he's a really, really talented basketball player. He will probably be in the NBA in the next year or two. And quite honestly, everyone had the expectation that he was going to be getting great playing time this year. Now he's playing maybe 3, 4, 5 minutes on the bench. Same thing can happen when you get to the NBA. The biggest thing, the biggest reason why I'm a fan of at least 1 year in college is because socially it has changed him for the better. This kid never spoke. This kid was so awkward, so antisocial. Now you see him. He's emotional, he speaks, he laughs. He's a normal human being. It's really amazing. I don't know whether that's, being away from home, whether that's, being around a team, hanging with all those guys, living on your own. I can't figure it out. It was so significant, such a significant change, in fact, that I helped, set him up with a girl. Now, he didn't do so well, and he reverted back to his normal awkward self, and it didn't work out with the girl, and that's another story, but it was progress nonetheless. So I was happy about that.
Hey, Alex, you have a lot of Twitter followers. That's a pretty huge number. I mean, did you get those sort of over time, or was there 1 or 2 stories that kind of just exploded you?
Yeah, definitely over time it really builds up, because with social media the biggest thing is, retweets, because if someone retweets you with, say 20,000 followers, all their followers will see that, and it leads to that stuff. There were a few significant stories I think that I broke that really changed things, but I think the biggest thing was consistency and continuity when it came to reporting things. It was always, every day there would be new stories to break, every day there would be important information to put out there. Probably one of the bigger things was probably like a year ago when Ben Howland got fired at UCLA. 2 AAU coaches tipped me off about that. I broke the story in my dorm room, and it was pretty amazing. And it was kind of funny though, because about like a week afterwards, I'm in a grammar class with one of my friends, and he goes up to me and he goes, "Hey, did you see, Ben Howland got fired?" I'm like, "Yeah, I broke it." So it's very funny how that can work, but your Twitter followers will build if you have something unique about you and something that's different in your tweets.
Do you find that your age, I mean, you seem like you have your shit together every 19 years old, which is pretty incredible.
Thank you.
Do you find that your age ever hinders you in, you don't seem to have much trouble getting in contact with these coaches. In fact, you mentioned they're trying to reach out to you, but whether it's dealing with players, parents, do you find that your age ever is a hindrance and something you have to overcome in proving yourself to these people that you do have legitimacy in, whether it's the information you can provide or I know you said you don't like to advise too much, but any way you can help them better themselves. I mean, is it hard for you to get over that hurdle being so young at times?
At first it was just getting into the business and speaking with all the players, because I was younger than them at the time. Now that I'm older, at least, that has helped. I think people have seen me in the magazines and they've seen what I've done, and it's all about really word of mouth. If you help one kid, they're going to speak on your behalf inadvertently, and they'll kind of build your brand up. And it really helps that way, because at first no one wanted to be interviewed by me. No one really wanted to deal with me. I was just kind of a burden. And it takes just a lot of effort to connect with the right people and constantly just find different ends. The biggest thing is, it's networking 101, to find an in with someone. Oh, I'm friends with this guy, I want to connect with this guy, he happens to be friends with that guy. So, you navigate that way.
And it seems like it was more advantageous for you to have connected first with the players,
right,
and then have the coaches.
Exactly. The biggest thing I think is, because I was connecting with the players and showing that I had, the right integrity, then the coaches were like, okay, you can talk with this guy because he does seem like, a normal person who has the right intentions, he means well. And it all connects from there, because then the parents will hear about it, the players will hear about it, and everyone hears about it eventually. And, at first a lot of people, I think especially in the media, kind of thought I was a joke, and you know, they thought it was just silly for me to be doing this as a 16-year-old without any credentials, without a degree. But once I proved myself and showed that I did have the right intentions, then people really, they shut up about it. They had no reason to blame me for any issues that, you know, so now, I mean, I can really go up to anyone, tell them anything, and I mean, not that far, but I'm able to be honest with people.
Yeah.
You know, and before you have to build that up. And the fact that I'm able to be honest with people and they can actually listen, it really helps.
So your credibility has like outweighed your age. Pretty much.
Exactly,
Like,
exactly. Yeah, and then the beard helps too.
Yeah,
Not like
true.
yours, yours is.
Thanks, man. Yeah, you'll get there.
I'm sure Vasu has asked, but how are things at Rivals? And would you consider after college or at some point during college to think about joining a company like ours?
Put me on the spot
You
there.
making him a job offer? And
Can we afford this?
With the
Just asking how things
The
are at Rivals.
This is for Japanese TV, by the way, so they're going to be international.
Interesting, good. I think Rivals is doing very well. I like my time at Rivals just because when you have the name Rivals or Scout or ESPN or 24/7, it automatically brings credibility to you and to your brand. The thing about Rivals, and I think a lot of recruiting sites, is because football, you have so many more players, you have so much more to cover, they really focus on a lot of the football. And for basketball, the coverage isn't always there. You know, you can, you know, as one person myself, you know, you can always do as much as possible covering nationally, but, you know, they tend to put a lot of their focus and a lot of their attention and money into football. They run football camps. I tried to get them to run a basketball camp. You know, that idea went out the window, unfortunately. You know, my plan with recruiting and what I do now has always been, you know, let's see what happens in college, let's get my degree, but this will be, you know, a fun job rather than working at, like, you know, the dining hall or something like that. Which is, it's really paid off because it's decent money and it's a great experience. But the plan has been, you know, once college ends, right around senior year, find something else if there is something better. If not, I'm in a great position right now. But it's always been to better myself and build things up. But, you know, the more I stay with one company, it at least helps because it's not like then I'm just jumping around and I've been here 2 months and here 4 months. You know, I really want to build things up. So I'm happy with where I'm at now, but there are always different opportunities that can present itself. So I'm always, I always keep my ears open.
Good answer. That was a good answer.
All right.
You can see he's answered that question.
Last
It's
question.
super quick, it's not long-winded. Was Syracuse your top choice for
Yeah,
for what you're
Syracuse.
doing?
Yeah, Syracuse was my top choice. I think there were a lot of things. It was close to home, but not too close. It had a great appreciation for basketball. They were #1 at one point, and they completely fell off. You know, and obviously the journalism school was great. I'm majoring in broadcast journalism there. I'm minoring in sport management, which is another great school. So the fact that I combine, you know, all those together, and you know, it's really it has a great element to it. And it's nice when you can also not affiliate myself with Syracuse, even though I'm a student there, but I know a lot about the program. So when I talk to kids, I can give them an honest opinion. You know, but at the same time, I've toured, you know, the University of Virginia's campus and everything there, and I can give them an honest opinion as well. So I just want to get to know as much about each college and, you know, be able to help the kid as much as possible. But yeah, Syracuse was the top choice.
I can ask him afterwards. It's fine. Cool. All right.
All right, I see your hand.
We're going to cut you off. All right. Thanks.